Today's topic, well, yeah, you know how important it is to find a good mechanic. Welcome to TABLEscraps, short discussions about board, card, and tabletop gaming, submitted by the viewing audience and discussed with the viewing audience. Hey everybody, hi and welcome back to another episode of TABLEscraps, the live streaming show where we discuss a topic about tabletop, board, and card gaming with the live stream YouTube chat. I'm your host, Chaz Marler, and today's discussion not only will be with the live streaming chat, but today's topic comes from a viewer in the chat as well. Today's topic comes from viewer Lucas Morão, and I apologize if I butchered your last name there, but he asks if there are any mechanisms that are a no-go to you. I'm wondering if it's just me, but there's some mechanisms that make a game, as cool as it sounds, still a pass for me. Mancala is one of them. But I can live with that. There's not so much Mancala games as far as I'm concerned, relatively speaking. The problem is bidding/auction. I don't like it, and they're everywhere in all shapes and forms. Sure, I can try a light, quick game, but bidding for turn order? Come on! Blind bidding? I could go on and on and on. So Lucas, you have presented quite the conundrum here. When you enjoy the activity of board gaming, but there are more and more board games that include a mechanism in it that you just don't like, and you dislike so much that even if the game isn't centered around that mechanism, it still sullies the experience for you to the point where you don't want to play that game. And I got to wondering, were there any mechanisms like that for me? And what can you do to mitigate that in the games that you play when it comes up? At first I was thinking, no, I adore and cherish and relish every type of game mechanism and every opportunity for gaming therein that they allow. But then I realized that, no, that's not true. I am about 50-50 on two mechanisms, and oddly enough, they're kind of related. One is, oddly enough, real-time gaming. A game like Space Cadets Dice Duel, I really, really want to enjoy this game. I own a copy of it. I've brought it out a couple of times. It's a really good party game. But the real-time dice aspect of it, I just don't enjoy as much as I thought and hoped that I would. Captain Sonar is another one that's real-time, and I do enjoy the game, but it doesn't stand out to me. It's one that I've never bothered to invest in, and I'll play it if I'm playing with the right group of people. But the mechanism that I think really relates to what you were saying, Lucas, is real-time speed reaction games. There's a game called Samurai Gardener, which is kind of like Honshu a little bit. You have cards with different tiles and you're laying the tiles over, and it sounded really great. But then I read that it was supposed to obtain the cards into your hand to build these little tableaus and stuff. It's supposed to be a real-time grabbing the cards you want type of mechanism. And it just kind of reduced my excitement to play it a lot. And so I'd rather just play Honshu or something else that has those other mechanisms that takes the real-time card grabbing one out. The real-time aspect is only a portion of the game. It's not the entire game. It's just a portion of it. And still it makes me go, I'd rather just play something else. So Lucas, I think, for me at least, it's going to be really difficult for me to say, how do we mitigate these, the mechanisms we don't like to still find a way to enjoy the games that incorporate them. I'm hoping that the real-time chat can provide not only some more examples of mechanisms that they have dealt with as well, so we can get some more insights to these people's minds, but also how they mitigate these issues as well. So let's turn now to the chat and see what people are saying. Let's start here with Toyota Wolf, who says, I'm kind of iffy on real-time games only because they can get a bit daunting. Oh, and CCGs, I loathe. Really? The entire CCG, what is it about the CCGs that you loathe? Is it the entire concept? Is it certain ones are more palatable than others? That is a very broad range, a big genre of games there. So I would be really interested to find out some more details. So let me know if those details become available. Cos Enchi joins us to say, I don't think I have a no-go mechanism, but there are some that make games harder sells to me due to the extensive misuse or it needing to, I lost my place, where'd it go? Wow. Due to extensive misuse or it needing a special game to work, like roll and move, player elimination, etc. Extensive misuse. Oh my, that is a very, very strong statement about some of these mechanisms. It's almost like having a game where it doesn't need like deck building, but by gum, we're going to add deck building to it just to see it happen. We're going to misuse deck building to the detriment of the players. Is that the way that you see this, or are you kind of going in a different, is it more like overuse or more like misapplication of a game mechanism? I would be interested to hear some more of the specific examples you have there. You mentioned roll and move and player elimination, but what are some of the specific games that you've seen where this has been a problem for you? I mean, perhaps we'll see a trend. Next up, we have Kabuki Kid, who offers a real-time is a conditional for me. I'm usually fine with it when it comes to frantic dice rolling and whatnot, but I have learned that I don't like puzzles as much in real time unless it's co-op. I'm too analytical, and I like to take my time with more puzzles when it's a competition. That is interesting, because that is an aspect of the real time I hadn't thought about. I actually kind of enjoy when it's a co-op having a little bit of a time limit enforced, whether it's a sand timer or a countdown clock or certain X moves that have to be done in a certain amount of time. When a co-op environment, to me, I don't actually mind the real time as much as I do with the pure competitive. And perhaps that's why Captain Sonar, to me, is on the fence a little bit more, because your whole team is kind of working together against the other team. Of course, in Space Cadet's Dice Tool, you do have your whole team, but everyone's kind of working more individually and not, I don't know. You know what? I still don't know. What I do know is that the next comment is going to come from Zachary, who says, I tend to steer clear of legacy games. Really, Zachary? I did not know that about you. I started playing board games because it was too much work to get the same D&D group together. Oh, okay. Yes, that can make sense then. If it is a challenge to get your game group together, I can certainly see how a game that has continuity going on from game to game, like a legacy game or an RPG, could definitely be a mechanism that is a no-go for you. That totally makes sense from a very practical standpoint. Christopher joins us to say, real-time mechanisms have to be simple. I prefer simultaneous reveal turn-based stuff like infiltration, entropy, rather than live real-time. That's a really good example there, I think. Real-time reveal is a way to get the similar flavor of real-time without the frantic pacing of a real-time game. So I think those are really good examples. And I think there's the first comment, I think, so far this episode that has kind of started to find the chinks in the armor, crack open kind of the larger picture here. Are there mechanisms that we are okay with that can mimic mechanisms that we don't like? And real-time reveal being one that can replace just frantic real-time, that might be the first good example of that. So thank you, Christopher, for the comment. Let's see if this rolls along into any more. We'll take about a half dozen more comments here. Sasha says, I try to stay away from roll and move games. The vast majority of them are just boring. I hate dexterity games because I suck at them. Real-time games are too stressful for me. I want to have fun. And there's a really good point about this. If there's a mechanism that you don't find fun, well, you're just, the whole game is going to be soured from it. Roll and move games, I think that is a really excellent example of a mechanism who many feel its time has come and gone, and gaming design has moved on from that mechanism as a whole. So there may be entire just genres, or well, not in genres, but there may be entire mechanisms that are better laid to rest, perhaps. And that might be a part of a larger discussion on this, but very relevant there. So thank you, Sasha. Kabuki also adds, originally, I thought I didn't like drafting in games, but then I learned that I am fine with drafting as long as it isn't the entire game. I know Sushi Go is popular, but I didn't have fun. I was just about to ask about Sushi Go. So right there you go. Yes, Sushi Go is a card game, which is 99.99% of drafting, gives you your full daily allowance of drafting. And I remember when I introduced Sushi Go to my daughter, who was about 9 at the time, it's recommended as a great entry-level game. I introduced her to Sushi Go. We played a game of it, and she kind of had the similar reaction of, yeah, that was neat, but that was it. And she hasn't really asked to play Sushi Go again. Sushi Go Party seems to add a few more layers to it, but it's still mostly drafting there. So I can see what you mean there. If there's a mechanism that you don't particularly like, sometimes if it is woven into another game, it can make it more palatable. Of course, there's the double-edged sword, which we've already discussed of that, well, if you don't like it a lot, it's going to ruin the entire game for you if you really, really detest that mechanism. So, but I think there that, sometimes I think that's something to keep in mind. The percentage of the game that is that mechanism can have an impact on there. Let's talk about that roll and move again, because Kabuki here has a comment directly related to that perhaps sheds a little bit of doubt upon my previous statement about roll and move perhaps having come and gone. Kabuki mentions Merchant of Venus is a good roll and move. Zaya, a game that is like number 3 on my top 100 of all time. Zaya Legends of a Drift System has roll and move. It can be done well, especially if there are ways to mitigate the rolls. Fair enough, Kabuki. I'll give you that one. I'll concede that point to you, that perhaps as long as there are ways to mitigate the little corners that roll and move can paint you into, that it is not necessarily a dead mechanism. So, yeah, fair enough. Gazencha adds, some mechanisms and player counts are very difficult to pull off unless the game is designed specifically around that player count. Auctions and area majority games are usually bad at 2-player. With the exception of area majority games that are 2 players only, such as Twilight Struggle or the Institute for Magical Arts. That is a really good point there, is player count can definitely have a very big impact on this. I really, I liked the game Inish, which came out a year or 2 ago, but in my opinion, it plays terribly with 2 players. There's a little combo of cards that if one player gets that combo of cards, they rule the round. And so the game became trying to just draft that combo of cards, and that became the entire game, and everything else became secondary when playing exclusively with 2 players. So I absolutely agree that player count can definitely be something that can make a mechanism that you usually like unbearable. Kabuki also offers, I don't like storytelling in the sense where games have you do a pitch on the spot based on the cards that you drew, like Snake Oil, or the one where you're interviewing for a job, Fun Employment, I think that one is. I loathe those, but I love storytelling games when it is from a paragraph book, like in Agents of Smersh, or Near and Far, Tales of Arabian Nights, and Ambush, etc. Games with paragraph books rule. So there you have storytelling, but in one aspect, the game is providing the story versus the actual players providing the story. And it's interesting that they're both storytelling. There's both a similar mechanism there, but just where it's originating from can have a big difference on how enjoyed the game is. So that's a really interesting point as well. Very, very interesting. Thank you for sharing that one. And we're going to wrap up this episode with a comment from Ethan, who says, I think Set is a bit different as a real-time game because you have to stop the action to take the sets of cards. It's fair enough. You do have to stop the action to take the set of cards. It's not like everything's continuing to go. But when you're sitting there trying to find the sets, all players are doing it simultaneously, trying to race against each other in real time. So it is kind of a mix. But fair enough that yes, it is definitely absolutely, the action does get more abbreviated because of that. And I think that might be an aspect of it that perhaps is something that causes me to enjoy it more as opposed to other real-time games. You know what else I enjoy is conversations like this with the YouTube chat. Unfortunately, we're out of time for today's episode. So if you'd like to continue this conversation, please feel welcome to do so over, I don't know what that was about, but please continue to do so over on our Facebook page or Twitter page, or subscribe to this channel for more info and videos and stuff like this that we do on YouTube. And remember that episodes like this are made possible by viewers just like you who have been supporting the Pair of Dice Paradise fundraisers. Thank you so much. Right now we're working towards raising funds for the 2018 season, so anything that is donated helps keep the show going and growing next year. In the meantime, I want to thank you all for joining us, and I've been Chaz Marler, who, along with the live streaming YouTube chat, have been serving up some table scraps. Talk to you again soon. My apologies if you hear throughout the broadcast. I realize now that I have forgotten to eat breakfast this morning, and so my stomach is wanting to participate in the chat. So if you hear it, I apologize. It's not a crab person in the background or anything. It's just my stomach growling. That totally makes sense from a very practical standpoint. I don't know if the mic picked that up, but that was a very big growl there. Soon, my pet. Soon.